What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your weekend to join me here. It is Saturday, and I'm recording this on a Friday night. Figured I wouldn't get into anything too serious today, but rather just have some fun and take a look back at the last decade of Packer drafts. So what I'm going to be doing today is going over round by round, round 1 through round 7, who is the best and worst pick in the last decade in each round. And then I'll kind of go over some picks that I really liked at the time and some that I was not so much a fan of. So let's just kick things off and get started right away. Hopefully this is fun. Maybe you'll think back of some of the picks that Green Bay made in each round and think, yeah, maybe you were a fan of it at the time or hated it. Maybe you got some right, some wrong, but figured it'd just be kind of a fun exercise. So let's, of course, start with round 1. And to me, there were 2 picks that stood out for Green Bay. And again, I'm going 2011 to 2020 here. So 10 years of drafts. And to me, you could make a strong argument for either of these gentlemen. Jair Alexander and Kenny Clark are easily the top 2 that they have made in the first round over the last decade. I think you could make a strong argument for Clark. He's done a little bit longer. He's played at a high level longer. And you could also make the argument that it's a better value since, he was picked in the late 20s rather than Jair, which is pick 18. So I think you could make a strong argument for Clark. I'm going to go Jair Alexander here. Not only do I think he might be a slightly more talented overall and just, playing a more premium position, but I also think the fact that Green Bay was able to maneuver in the draft and pick up an extra first-round pick in the following season to end up getting Darnell Savage, I think has to be kind of considered right along with that. So I'm going to lean on Jair Alexander and just kind of that first round in general. I thought that was a masterclass by Brian Gutekunst and what he was able to do with selecting Alexander and pick up future draft capital. So I'm going to go Jair Alexander, number 1, Kenny Clark, number 2. If you want to flop those, by all means, be my guest. I'm not going to argue with you, but for the sake of this, I'm going Jair 1 and Kenny Clark 2. Worst picks in the first round? I'm going to have to go Dayton Jones and Derek Sherrod. And Sherrod probably has a worse career, right? But that's due to injury, not necessarily to performance on the field. So you kind of give him an incomplete. It still ends up not being a great pick for Green Bay. But I think Dayton Jones, on the other hand, had every opportunity, not just with Green Bay, but with other teams. Actually played in the NFL, I want to say like 7-8 years. I didn't look it up, but he played for a while. Got a cup of coffee here and there. I think he played with Dallas for a little bit. But he had every opportunity with multiple teams. He played inside, he played defensive end, he played edge rusher. Like, they tried him everywhere and tried to get some return on investment on that pick, and it just never worked out. So I'm going to go Dayton Jones as the worst pick in the first round and Derek Sherrod the runner up there. Second round, there were a lot of good picks. Randall Cobb did not even make my top 2. I'm going to go number 1 overall, Devonta Adams. Not only was he the Packers' best second-round pick of the last decade, you can make a strong argument that he's the best second-round pick, period, in the last decade. He just obviously a absolute home run pick for Green Bay. You could make an argument, certainly, for Randall Cobb being a runner-up. I'm going to slightly lean towards Elgton Jenkins here. And again, if you want to flop Cobb and Jenkins, be my guest. Cobb obviously had a tremendous career with Green Bay. And based on what we know right now and how long Cobb played in Green Bay, and Jenkins just going into his third year, again, you could make a strong argument for Randall Cobb here. But based on the talent that we've seen out of Jenkins so far, starting his first 2 seasons, playing all along the offensive line, showing the versatility, I think he's ultimately going to end up having a better career than Randall Cobb. We'll see. Hopefully that's the case. But I'm going to go Devonta and Elgton as their best 2 picks. And then on the flip side, not only was Jason Spriggs a terrible pick, but they moved up, I think it was like 10 spots up to get Jason Spriggs, just for him to never fit at offensive tackle. They tried him at guard. He goes to Chicago, was terrible last year. So, he was just a swing tackle, but just could never make it work out on the field, never put it together mentally, and had every physical trait that you would want, but just couldn't get the footwork and the focus and everything like that down. Ended up being a total bust. And then Jarrell Worthy from Michigan State as well. His tape to me was never good, and that showed very much so when he got to the NFL. So I'm going to go Spriggs is the worst, especially with the trade up, but Jarrell Worthy certainly an honorable mention there. The third round has basically been abysmal. Now, the last couple are still incomplete in Jay Sternberger and Josiah DeGuara, but the last decade of third-round picks, Alex Green, Kyrie Thornton, Richard Rodgers, Ty Montgomery, Kyler Fackrell, Montrevious Adams, Oren Burks, Jay Sternberger, Josiah DeGuara. That is 9 not great draft picks so far. And again, incompletes on Sternberger and DeGuara so far. We can't make overall assumptions on those 2 quite yet. but Oren Burks has not done anything. Adams is already gone. Fackrell is probably the best, along with Montgomery. At least they've hung around for a while and had some impact. Richard Rodgers, same kind of thing. Kyrie Thornton was a bust. Alex Green was a bust. So I'm going to say Kyler and Ty were the best two on this list so far, with Kyrie Thornton and Alex Green just being absolute nightmare picks. And I remember Thornton at the time, a lot of people didn't even have him in like the first 5 rounds of the draft. Green Bay selected him at the end of the third. That was like the back-to-back Kyrie Thornton, Richard Rodgers type picks and like a handful of picks in the third round where nobody was expecting them to go in the top 100, even close. And Green Bay goes outside the box and basically swung and missed on both of them. Although, again, Rodgers has had a nice career in the NFL. All right, 4th round, some really home run picks here, but you have to go with David Bakhtiari as the best overall 4th round pick. And again, can make a strong argument, the best 4th round pick in the last decade period. And then Mike Daniels, another really strong pick in the 4th round, still playing, just signed a new contract. Has obviously been a good player throughout the league, but was a really good Packer for a while there and really was kind of the motor and engine behind that Packers defense. On the flip side, some really bad ones. I'm going to say Jamon Moore has been the worst of the 4th round picks, with Carl Bradford right at his heels. Bradford got some time on special teams at least, which is why I think Jamon is worse. Not only did he flame out of the league, he never helped them in any way, shape, or form. So I'm going to say Jamon was the worst and Carl Bradford as the runner up there. All right, let's go to 5th round. 2 premium picks here for Green Bay. I'm going to say Corey Linsley was the best and Aaron Jones second best. If you want to flip them, again, be my guest. But I think Linsley just has the longevity and just has been a dominant player for, since they drafted him. Gets the huge deal with the Chargers this offseason. Jones stays in Green Bay, of course, but just 2 home run 5th round picks. I'm going to go Linsley 1 and Jones as the runner up. And then 2 misses here. D'Angelo Yancey never could find his way on the field and was quickly out of the NFL. And then same thing with Terrell Manning, the inside linebacker. Just never put anything together. Didn't really, even have an impact on special teams if memory serves. So 2 not so great 5th round picks there. In the 6th round, Green Bay hasn't had a ton of success in the 6th round either. I'm going to actually go out on a limb and say John Runyon Jr. is already the best of their 6th round picks over the last decade. We'll see. Runyon still has a ways to go, but the next best is probably EQ. And I would almost take what I saw out of Runyon in spot duty a season ago than what I've seen out of EQ the last few seasons. So Runyon is 1A on my list, with EQ being the runner-up. And then the 2 not so great ones, Caleb Schlotteroff and Ricky Elmore, just never did absolutely anything for Green Bay and were quickly out of town. A 7th round pick, probably the best, is Lawrence Guy, even though never really got a chance to play for Green Bay. Had a phenomenal career in New England, one that Green Bay let kind of get away. He ended up being a phenomenal evaluation, but a horrible decision to let him go early. So Lawrence Guy ends up being their best 7th round pick, but unfortunately being better for New England than Green Bay. And then I'd have to say my runner-up is Ty Summers here, even if just for special teams value. They haven't had a ton of success in the 7th round, but I'll give Summers the benefit of the doubt as the runner-up here. And then the 2 terrible picks, in the 7th round, again, it's the 7th round, so who cares? But Devonta Mays and James Looney. I mentioned Devonta Mays' stat line the other day, like 2 fumbles and very minimal touches. I think he had like 10 carries for 1 yard, 8 carries for 1 yard. And 2 fumbles, just a terrible stat line. And James Looney was so bad at defensive line that they tried to convert him to a tight end and then just basically said, see you later. So again, best picks, Jair and Clark in the 1st, Devontae and Elton in the 2nd, Kyler, Fackrell, and Ty Montgomery in the 3rd, David Bakhtiari and Mike Daniels in the 4th, Corey Linsley and Aaron Jones in the 5th, John Runyon and EQ in the 6th, Lawrence Guy and Ty Summers in the 7th, and then worst picks, Dayton Jones and Derek Sherrod in the 1st, Jason Spriggs and Jarrell Worthy in the 2nd, Kyrie Thornton, Alex Green in the 3rd, Jamon Moore, Carl Bradford in the 4th, D'Angelo Yancey, Terrell Manning in the 5th, Caleb Schlotteroff and Ricky Elmore in the 6th, and Devonta Mays and James Looney in the 7th. So just kind of looking back at it, and some of I promise you, this is not in the benefit of hindsight. Love the Jair pick when it happened. That was easily my favorite pick of the decade. Some that I did not like. I didn't like a lot of their picks. I really disliked the Dayton Jones pick. I was definitely on an island at the time. I hated the Clinton Dix pick. Did not think that he was going to work out. Certainly did for a couple years, and I certainly was wrong for a couple years. Was certainly very right after that. Demarius Randall was another. Just didn't see even the coverage or the angle taking or any of the football IQ on tape at safety at Arizona State, and they wanted to make him into a corner. I thought it was a really rich selection at that point, so was not a fan of that. Rashawn Gary, I liked the player. I didn't think the value was there at pick 12 with the injury issues, the lack of production. He had high-end athleticism. I just thought there were safer and better picks there at 12. I'm very excited about and bullish upon Rashawn Gary's upside moving forward, but was not a huge fan of the pick at the time. And then Jordan Love, I wrote right before the draft, I could understand if Green Bay selected Jordan Love with their pick last season. The one thing I wrote, and I wrote this before the draft, the one thing I did not want to see was a trade up for Jordan Love. In hindsight, giving up a 4th round pick that was basically a comp for, which is basically like an early 5th pick. Like, it's not that big of a deal, but trading up for Jordan Love was a little bit of a tough pill to swallow when the pick first happened. So those are the one I liked was Jair. A lot of those I did not like. In the 2nd round pick, I loved a lot of them. I loved Casey Hayward. I loved Devonta Adams. I loved Quentin Rollins. Was certainly wrong on that. I shouldn't say I didn't love Quentin Rollins, but I really liked the pick. I thought he had a lot of upside. Jason Spriggs, same thing. I really liked the pick. I liked moving up for him. Again, just one I certainly got wrong there. Josh Jones and Josh Jackson, 2 more picks that I liked. High athletic traits and upside, and just have not been able to put it together in the NFL. But I did get right. Like I mentioned earlier, hated the Jarrell Worthy pick, and that certainly ended up being correct. 2 third-round picks I liked. I liked Alex Green at the time and Jay Sternberger. Jury is still out on Sternberger, and certainly Alex Green was a bust. I hated Montrevious Adams and Kyrie Thornton, like both the same type of player. Just never saw the upside with either. Didn't think that they were steady, consistent players. Didn't think they had the flash and pizzazz of an upside pick. I just didn't like anything about it, and certainly both of those came to fruition. In the 4th round, really like Jonathan Franklin. Wish his career didn't come to an end, and really like the Jamon Moore pick. The rest of the draft, there weren't any that I didn't like. Like, once you get to the 4th round, like, you don't really dislike 4th round picks, as like you're just taking a chance after the top 100 at this point, right? So I liked Franklin and Jamon Moore. In the 5th, I really liked Jared Abradaris. No, not because he played at Wisconsin. A part of it was because of his game against Bradley Roby, who was expected to be a 1st-round pick in that draft, and Abradaris just spun him in circles. Loved that game from Abradaris. Thought he was a really sound route runner. Just didn't have the physical traits to win at the NFL level. Liked the John Runyon Jr. pick in the 6th round. And in the 7th, really liked Jonathan Garvin, Kendall Donnerson, and Andrew Datko. I think he was a Florida State offensive tackle, if memory serves. And I thought he had some developmental upside. Same with Donnerson. Those 2 did not come to fruition. We'll see if Jonathan Garvin can put it together. But those are my picks I liked and didn't like. Those are some of the best and worst picks of the last decade. Again, this isn't going to win any Webby awards today for any hard hitting analysis, but just thought it'd be fun to go through and kind of look at the last decade of Packers drafts, kind of reminisce on ones I like, ones I didn't like, what they hit on, what they didn't hit on. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, make sure to subscribe and like. If you didn't, I'm sorry. I love you anyway. Thanks for joining me. Make sure to check out today's audio version of the podcast wherever you get your favorite audio podcasts. I'm going to be right back here tomorrow. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.